A question I've often asked myself lately has been, what actually is the internet and why is it useful? Or more importantly, what I want to talk about today is, why is the internet effectively useful? My topic for the blog post that we were supposed to make was group phases, and I created this blog, and what I came to this conclusion was that, one and two, the internet and teams are only useful insofar as they're actually managed properly. My name is Michael Kuhns. I'm an economics student at YSU, and I picked group phases because I've always felt that I can manage teams and specifically conflicts that arise in teams and eliminate them, which is why I was interested in group phases in the first place and why it ended up being my topic. My 3 points for this presentation is that, first, what actually are group phases and why are they important for businesses? Two is, why is the construction of a blog post, specifically on Weebly, actually useful, and what are the pros and cons to doing so? And then third is, what's the similarity between the two? What did I come to conclude? And I came to conclude that the only way that these things are actually useful, or the only reason why the internet and teams of people are actually useful, is if they're actually managed properly. So to get on with my first point is that group phases, what they are and why they're actually important, is group phases are this idea that teams, when they first start, go through 5 steps. The first step is forming, the second step is storming, third step is norming, fourth step is performing, and the fifth step is adjourning. Usually, sometimes the fifth step is kind of left out because it's really just a group concluding. But the 4 steps are the main, or the first 4 are the main important ones. So the importance of group phases is that it allows us to have this foundation for the ability to actually do work. Teams need to have a consistent process to actually engage and work with each other, especially when they're working with new people. So the first 2 steps are outlined as forming and storming. What these 2 processes are is engaging with people and then starting to push boundaries. So first, you're actually getting to meet people, and then you start to push each other's boundaries and get to know each other. Really, no work is being done here, but it's outlining the foundations for the short term of work actually being done. Then after this, the second point is consistency, and it allows people to consistently work together. So we have that good foundation, and that's great, but what do the groups actually do after that? Well, that's when the next 2 steps are important. It's norming and performing, and these are really, really crucial because the norming process is where people start to get in a rhythm with each other, and then the performing process is where they're actually doing the work. So it's important for us to know these steps in businesses, especially because people need to work in teams, but the only way they can effectively work in teams is if we know how they should work in those teams. And that's why group phases is important for businesses, but as well as everybody just working with groups of people. But on to the next point is that Weebly and content curation is beneficial if done correctly. If not so, it doesn't actually do any good for us. So the main point here is that display needs to be good. For any type of content curation, any type of website creation, we need to actually be able to access and engage with this information. It does us no good if we have a lot of information compiled onto one page, but we don't actually know what we're reading or where we're reading or how to find each and every other point that we want to talk about. And I think Weebly was really good at this. It gave you a whole bunch of different tabs and really easy ways to create your website, create your blog. And then it also allowed you to pick your themes and choose what you wanted your site to look like and what type of vibe you wanted to get off. But my problems with Weebly was that you don't actually have a lot of sovereignty in doing so. So it gives you this whole cookie cutter sheet of a website, and that's great. But if you want to go anywhere above that, you're going to have to start actually learning your own HTML and start coding your own computers. I wish Weebly could actually allow you to start to change things up away from their just baseline themes. But the other problem I have with this is their URLs and allowing the .weebly at the end of the URLs. My only problem with that is really just that it's inherent that you just need to buy a domain, and I think that's not a huge deal for people just creating a website for the fun of it. But if you actually want to do something for a business or for yourself, you're going to need your own domain because it looks messy and unprofessional. And in the future, if I was to use Weebly, I'd only really be using it as a last resort, because if I'm creating my small business and I don't have money to pay somebody to actually create me my own website, then I'd go to Weebly. The problem there is, though, I'd have to actually spend my own money to get that domain from Weebly. So if I'm already spending money on a website, why don't I pay somebody to create one professionally? But My third point, and in essence of what I actually created this speech on, is that there's this huge overlap between these two ideas. We have the internet, which is a collection of all the information we know in the world, and then we have teams, which is just a coming together of a large number of people who want to work collectively together to get a goal done. The problem with both of these that they experience before we have either group phases or content curation is the fact that they're useless without organization. If we have a whole lot of people, but they're not getting anything done because they're either A, arguing, or B, don't have an assigned leader and don't know how to work with the other people, it's completely useless, even though we have all those people who could potentially do something. The same thing with information on the internet. The internet's compiled with all the world's information, that's great, until we can't actually read it. If it's just a collection of these different ideas, but I don't know how to access which other page, then what's the point? So the main idea is that you need to have this great display and this great implementation, or else these things are completely useless, which is why group phases as well as content curation and creating blogs is very, very important. But in conclusion, what we can see is that essentially group phases and content and creating a blog is very, very important because it organizes this data or it organizes this people, so it actually provides benefit to everyone. What I talked about today was that group phases, Weebly, and content curation in general, and this overlapping idea that display is necessary, shows that there's always going to be an inherent theme to two ideas. And the sheer fact of the matter is that Weebly gives you a simple way to organize information, even though it's not perfect. Group phases outlines how people should work, and overall we have to see that there's an inherent need to actually come together and display this information or make our tools useful for us. So with that being said, when I ask myself, why is the internet actually useful? It's only useful because of people collecting this data and displaying it to us and giving us an easy way to engage in it, in the same way that teams are only useful if they're actually getting things done. And they're only getting things done if they actually have a way to engage in that team. And the only way they can engage is if they first start forming their team, then storming with ideas and conflicting with each other. Then they come to a normal state of working, and then they finally start performing for teams. That is the group phase. That is why it's very important that we collect content, we're able to create blogs, and why we should be able to form teams but have a consistent way to do so. Thank you.